could be considered a attractive nuisance beyond their normal issues with those. Staff believes that there is some safety concerns as well with having these pools in the front of the properties. Staff also thinks that there is a direct correlation issue with pools taking up spaces that are normally used for overflow parking, especially on private properties, which everyone knows is also an issue for the town. So staff is, for lack of a better word, co-sponsoring this to come forward and for review. We do believe, staff does believe, after reviewing the minutes from the original discussions about and the approval of the original ordinance, which is 157.06 0D7, is that it was never the intent to design an ordinance that would allow for swimming pools to go in the front yard. So it was never a discussion, it was never a thought, but the way they worded it, it is what allows those pools to be there. So we also believe that pools being in the front yard are a product of an ordinance that was never intended to allow it. That's staff's.
So basically, it's a loophole that you're trying to close.
It is a loophole that popped up because the town was trying to do something about stormwater running into the roads, and they were also trying to make it easier for access from what we can gather for the new sewer systems that were being installed. So they took advantage of those times. But stormwater was one of the bigger ones, and because they were trying to allow certain types of products that may be pervious, they inadvertently allowed swimming pools because I guess they weren't properly advised or no one realized it. And that happens a lot. Ordinances get written and then people just wait till they find an opportunity to jump through a loophole if it's there. And typically you gotta close them. And we may be a little late closing ours, but it needs to be closed.
Okay, we'll ask the public, do you have any comments? Were there any comments received, Rhonda?
No.
So then I guess we just need to close our public hearing.
That's right, when we close the public hearing, and then you can decide whether you want to send it up to the Board of Commissioners. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, the public hearing is closed. But we'll call our regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board to order. Roll call, Chair Vicki Myers here. Vice Chair Mark Pleshire. He is in New York at a grandchild's graduation.
So that would be absent.
That would be absent excuse because he told us in advance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secretary Tracy Thomas.
Here.
Regular member Bob Hunter.
Here.
Last one.
One.
Regular member Greg Shue. He's not here. His wife is ill and he is in carpool duty today. Alternate Pete Pallas.
Here.
All right. Are there any public comments on the agenda items? Okay, next on the list is the approval of the minutes of the May 25th regular meeting. Now, those were emailed out by Rhonda. Did everyone get a copy? If not, there's one in front of you. And if so, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as written. Or are there any corrections?
I make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carried unanimously. The minutes are approved as written. Okay, swearing in of members by Heather, our town clerk for Pete.
Okay, you get to place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Pete Palace,
Do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully
the
discharge
duties of my office
the duties of my office
as an alternate member
as an alternate member
to the Planning and Zoning Board
to the Planning and Zoning Board
for the town of Holden Beach.
for the town of Holden Beach.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just need you to sign it right here for me, please.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe next month I'll see you again as a regular member.
Okay, moving on. Number 6, discussion of possible action on ordinance 157.060 D7B. We're doing this as Tim alluded to, we're changing that to C. And 157.061 D6B. And again, we're changing that to C. And those are just the 2 residential districts. If you want, do you have any questions about that? Let's talk about that. What would you like to do?
Well, I don't want to see pools in the front yard, so I mean, to me, that'd be like driving down Ocean Boulevard in Myrtle Beach, seeing everybody out by the pool, their bathing suits, towel hanging everywhere, and no place to park, so they park out in the street or on the sidewalk. And I just see it as a possible safety hazard, like Tim mentioned. Somebody come along and climb the fence and go swimming and drown, you know. I mean, I just think it's a nuisance.
Tim had a good point last month too, with bike lanes, you know, they'll be that much closer to these pools, literally like reach out and touch them.
I
Like
just
with some
don't-
OPW.
I don't see any advantage to it. I don't know what the advantage would be. No, that's my opinion.
I think the town will be remiss if they don't recognize the fact, like the rest of the world, that pools are attracting nuisances.
They are.
And they typically end up in the backyard, and they typically, they're not typically, they are required everywhere, even internationally, to have safety built into it. And it's a high level of safety. Putting them in the front yard setbacks in a community that's as dense as this one, with main thoroughfares that are right on top of them, I think is a failure to recognize actually how dangerous they could be to especially when we're putting bike paths in. So you can have children riding on those bike paths, riding those lanes, it only takes 1 or 2 little kids, and next thing you know, you got traffic on the ends.
I agree with Tim and I support the changes.
I have no comment.
No, but
I took a delivery over to a house on East Ocean Boulevard, 277. They have a pool in their front yard. I mean, you know, this is government trying to rule you again. And I don't.
I do think that they're unattractive. I think that our streetscapes would be more attractive without pools in the front yard. And that's important to me as far as our property values, and that's one of the reasons. But yeah, that's my initial gut reaction to the whole thing.
But I also do feel like, as a former pool owner, it is an attractive nuisance. And drowning is a huge risk
we are only beginning to see that in this community because we are only now beginning to add pools. And I will take it to the wall as far as how dangerous they are. Having spent many years in Phoenix, I can tell you that we treat pools here a lot differently than they do because they've done a lot more of them, but we are headed that direction. So he's exactly right that they are an attractive nuisance and they can be deadly. I don't like the idea that we have cars going up and down the road. I know that the speed limit is 35 and 45, but I think we can all agree that oftentimes that's not the speed that they're driving, and I would hate to see an accident occur where, especially with our congestion, that would then lead a car into a pool. That also concerns me. So I think what we had discussed doing was we wanted to send this on to the BOC with a recommendation. So I think we need to take a vote on that. If we're going to do that, we still need to do a consistency statement for the ordinance change. Okay? So if somebody would like to make a motion that we send this forward, when you say that, that's our next step here?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, your next step is to send it forward.
With a recommendation to approve it, right? We throw our
I mean,
recommendation.
that's up to you. You got to vote whether you want to. First you got to vote to. I would assume that you would vote to approve the change and to send it forward. But if you do it that way, you're going to have to send it forward with a consistency statement. It's going to have to go one way or the other, either consistent or not consistent. If you want my personal opinion as staff, there's nothing in the land use plan that it would be inconsistent with. There's not anything even close, I don't believe. It's not.
I know, I already wrote it.
Yeah, can't be.
I looked it all up for last month.
Yeah.
Let me just read, okay, before we move forward, let's take a vote on that.
What are we voting on?
We are voting on whether we are in favor of sending this forward with a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
So we need a motion to that effect.
So I make a motion to send this to the Board of Commissioners
I second.
and with a recommendation to approve it.
And you second that?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that motion carries unanimously. Then, part of sending this forward is the requirement that we do a consistency statement. So, when we started discussing this last month, I looked up through our land use plan and pulled out where I thought what we would say. You know, that's required. So let me read this to you, and I think that we need to edit it. So I'll take your edits then, and we'll finish it up, and I'll send you another copy, and that's what we'll send with our recommendation.
Yeah. I was going to tell you that under the new 160D guidelines, those consistency statements don't have to be that in-depth.
They don't have to be as detailed, but we still have to send one.
Still have to send it.
And the BOC still has to do one too. They can just reference it, but
They have to take it into consideration.
Before she does that, I just have a process question. The commissioners then have to have a public hearing before they would
Yeah.
approve it?
They're
Again,
gonna-
another
They're
public
going to
hearing?
look at it and determine whether they want to take it any further, which at that point they'll determine whether they want to have a public hearing.
Got
And
it.
they'll go through the same process you did.
Okay.
It's at the second, it's before they approve the ordinance that they'll have to make public reference to the consistency statement.
Got it.
They have to take it into consideration.
Okay.
It'll be presented. Consistency statement gets presented, that's what we do with the ordinance when we do it.
Okay.
Therefore, it's a matter of record that they took it into consideration.
and I know you guys remember that when we redid the land use plan, the reason we do this is because we're showing that we are looking at the land use plan. It doesn't have to be consistent for us to recommend it goes forward,
Mm-hmm.
but we still have to do a consistency statement stating whether it is or it's not.
Got it.
Based on what I found, I felt like it was consistent with our land use plan. I'll just read to you what I've got here. The Town of Holden Beach Planning and Zoning Board has reviewed and hereby recommends approval of amendments to Chapter 157.060D7C and 157.061D6C of the zoning ordinance regarding pools placed in the front setback. After review, the Planning and Zoning Board Planning and Zoning Board has found that the recommended amendments are consistent with the adopted CAMA land use plan and is considered reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. Safety. Pools adjacent to public roadways increase the risk of an accident becoming more serious should the vehicle leave the roadway. Chapter 4, Analysis of Community Facilities, of the adopted plan discusses the annual average daily traffic, AADT, and notes that accounting for seasonal increases in population and traffic, the counts may exceed capacity of roads. This could lead to additional collisions. Aesthetics. Chapter 1, Introduction of the adopted plan references that one of the community's highest ranked desires is to retain and enhance community appearance regarding the character of development on Holden Beach. Policy 5.1.c states that the town will ensure that the development is consistent with existing aesthetic and architectural characteristics. Third reason, it will promote public health, safety, and general welfare within our community by reducing the risk of a dangerous accident where the risk was not present prior to the pool installation and will maintain the community's current aesthetics. Upon approval by the Board of Commissioners, the comprehensive plan will be deemed amended and shall not require any additional request or application for amendment. So then blah, blah, blah. Now, is there anything else you guys would like to see us add to this? Such as parking and attractive nuisance?
I think that's
Are
great.
you,
Yeah, I already do that.
I don't have a statute, I don't have the reference out of the land use plan, so, I mean, if you like, we can just go with this
Well,
one.
insurance companies consider that attractive nuisance. And that they have higher insurance on it if you have a pool. So, there is a risk where insurance companies would not do that.
Yeah, and I'd say there's also a risk that it reduces the parking available for the home,
Right.
and then it could be not meeting the requirements.
I intend to make that part of our presentation. I have every time. I still think that the importance of parking, that particular issue being on the forefront right now, that
But adding it just makes it as part of the official record, right?
it'll be part of the official record when I'll discuss it with the board.
Well, it just invites people that, when you have an overload, your family comes to park on the sidewalk.
That's right. In other words, typically those areas that are being used for that. Now, there's one small,
Of course,
I just passed one earlier that just really drives it home. It's up there somewhere about halfway. That pool took up everything that was left in that front yard. They got to stack them deep underneath the house now. You know what I mean?
Okay, so would you guys like to edit or amend this, or just send it as it is?
It's fine as is, as long as that part is gonna be part of the public record.
And Tim would put it in the public record then?
Yeah, I'll make it part of it. It'll be part of our presentation. It has been every time.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the parking is one of the
Then it's
big
fine.
deals.
Are you guys fine with that?
I'm fine with
I'm
it.
good with it.
Okay, so then we would need
I
a,
think it's very good.
thanks.
Yeah, that's good.
You did a lot of work over
I've gotten very intimate with our ladies plan.
there. Yeah, you have.
We would want a motion then to adopt this.
okay, make a motion to adopt the compliance statement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried unanimously, so that'll be 4-0, and then I'll sign this one. I'll print a clean copy and send it, a PDF of that to Tim. Okay, that's done. Now, okay, I had on my agenda discussion and possible action of rules of procedure. Tim asked us to delete that. I did do the rules of procedure, and I updated them to reflect when we actually meet. Like, we're not actually meeting now, second Tuesdays at 7 and that kind of thing anymore. So, but Tim, would you like to explain to everybody what you're thinking there?
Well, I wanted to put it off until we had the permanent board. It's just one meeting away from the permanent board. So we get the permanent board on. Staff may have some suggestions there. Me and Rhonda was actually talking about it a little bit today about the times Yeah, as you're aware, we've been given the opportunity to hire an additional person, which could change the way we look at things, but me and her's got to have another conversation. But we're literally looking at time, changing the time. But that's discussion, that's why we didn't want to have it now. We want to have it with the new board because they'll have some input as well. And, we'll discuss it then.
I'm just curious
We'll put a staff recommendation with
what are you
Vicky's
thinking about
recommendation.
as the new time?
Well, me and Rhonda was talking about it going back to where it was.
7 o'clock on Tuesdays?
6, I think, wasn't it, Rhonda? Wasn't it at 6 or was it at 7?
I thought earlier than that.
Yeah. You think it was earlier than 6?
I think it should be earlier than that.
Oh, okay. So
Well, I
we
think
need
it's
to talk about it.
Yeah, I've got the old copies if you want them. One is from.
I've got several
Me
copies
and her
too.
just
Okay.
need to have a conversation. She's apparently got a different time in mind than I do. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay, we'll talk about it next month.
For me, it don't matter because I don't get paid the way she does. For her, it's a thing. So-
Well, it actually matters to me, so
Mhm.
if I'm gonna be on the board, then and
Yeah,
I can't make that time on Tuesdays,
yeah.
What
I have
time,
a-
you can't make what time?
6, I have a standing,
Well, that's what I'm
at
saying.
5:30.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You got all these other board members, you follow what I'm saying? They may be
Yeah,
looking at a different time than you are,
Right,
and they may agree that it needs to be done so you can be there, so it won't matter what we,
Yeah.
you follow what I'm saying? It needs to be the new board.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, well, if you guys were set in stone on that, then
I'm
I
not.
wouldn't be on the board.
No,
because
I'm
I
not.
could-
One of
I
us
could
said-
definitely not make that Tuesday
I'm not.
commitment.
There's neither one of us setting any kind
Got
of
it.
time.
Okay.
no.
But it's a discussion, I think.
Yep, I agree.
Well, new
Two was
people
too
need to-
early for us
Yep.
because we had a
Yep.
hard time catching up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I'm flexible, whatever. The document that I sent you guys is a Word document, so you can edit it, easily.
Well,
and-
I didn't want to change that document, that's what I'm saying. I just want to have the discussion. I think that next board just needs to vote, make a decision.
There are some discrepancies in the ordinance that establishes the planning and zoning board. It says that, you're laughing at me.
Yeah, no.
On the quorum,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
I've argued it since day one. It's not a
okay,
quorum.
right, and the way the state is recommending it be set up is different than what we actually have it set up, so that
As a
might be something you
quorum.
want to look at. Right, they want a quorum of the, they want to do it differently.
Yeah.
You
They
can see
don't
we do
have
have
no
a
A
trouble.
quorum is once you reach the majority, not more than the majority.
Mhm.
The way ours is set up, a quorum is more than the majority, which doesn't make sense because it doesn't even meet the real definition of what the state asks for.
Well, and sometimes we have a hard time making 4,
Yep.
so.
Well, I've had this conversation.
Okay, so, moving along. To comments, I did have a comment that I wanted to read. I am recognizing outgoing board members Mark Fleischauer and Bob Hunter. Both of these gentlemen have completed 2 3-year terms and are not eligible for reappointment to this board. This is their last meeting. Both of these members have seen a lot of issues come through this board in the last 6 years. 2 parking citizen advisory committees, or CACs, plus 1 sewer system, CAC. The second water tower issue, mega houses and all the issues that they pose repeatedly. The building height amendment, cargo lifts, noise ordinance, to name just a few. In addition, Bob and Mark were also members of the Land Use Plan Steering Committee and fully participated in the update of the plan, another huge task. I've enjoyed working through these issues with both of them. They are prepared for our meetings, they have great ideas, and they think about the consequences and have the best interests of the island in mind as they vote. The residents and property owners of Holden Beach have been well served by your time on the P&Z board, and on behalf of myself and the other citizens, I thank you for your time and service. It's truly appreciated. My second full term expires next year, and I hope that one of you will apply for my spot. So again, thanks and enjoy your well-earned time off.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you pass that down to Rhonda to put it
Well,
on
I'd
minutes?
just like to say,
Thank
I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing me to serve these 2 terms. And I was proud to be on this board, and hopefully I did put some input into it. And I want to thank you and Mark also. You two have really put a lot into this. And you, example like today, I mean, you go overboard and do things that's not even asked or, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure the board does, and the people should. And you recognize me, but I'm recognizing you, and I thank you very much. And Mark as well, and all the members on this board, thank you very much. And Tim and Wanda, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you as a commissioner. Thank everybody. I want to leave on a positive note.
Well, I've enjoyed working with you a lot, and I'm not even going to talk about it anymore because I'll get all teary about this because I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
You brought a whole lot of really great input to the board. I mean, like I think about the water tower, and that was, you had such experience. It was great to have you sitting there. Okay, our next meeting is July 27th at 3:30. Correct? Does anyone else have comments that they'd like to voice?
I have one that I'm going to reiterate. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but I go to all the camera meetings and
The CRC meetings?
Yes, CRC meetings, and I spoke against the inlet hazard areas again, and I won't get into detail on that, but what did happen while I was there is that they are looking at, the CAMA is attempting to write language that will allow them to enforce our land use ordinance, our land use plan. That's going to go over terribly and horribly bad because everyone knows that those are guidelines and policies. It was brought up by me and another planner that was there during the comment sections. Those, the land use plan, as you well know, can be considered or not considered before the board makes a decision. It's going to be a sad day when Wilmington decides whether development can happen or not before the Board of Commissioners ever makes a decision based off of the land use plan that was written under a different board and a different planning board. Land use plans can be amended, and typically they get amended when an issue is brought forward. If they do what they're trying to do, then they're going to be stopping development that municipalities or government entities may want to see under consideration, or at least have under consideration, and not give municipalities or government entities the opportunity to make amendments so they can have those things. It was never intended for that. It was only intended as a guideline and a policy to prove to DEQ that towns were going to follow those recommendations under the 7B guidelines. It was not to be enforced by DEQ. And I'm starting our uprising year. I'm going to carry it to the Board of Commissioners, and I'm sure that every municipality from the Virginia line all the way down to Myrtle Beach will do the exact same thing when this hits the floor running. It was just put forward during that meeting. But we do not need Wilmington or Raleigh deciding what we can or cannot have based off of what the political motives were at the time the land use plan was written. Because it could change with the next board.
Well, and it was written as an advisory document anyway.
Exactly. It's what we would like to see, not what we wrote in stone.
Do you think that came from them, or they had higher ups?
They've got a staff that's out of control. They've literally got a staff at DEQ that are out of control.
Right there.
That's right. Whereas me and Rhonda try to do everything we can to limit rules and regulations, to try to keep them simple and limit them and make it easier. What they're doing up there is, I'm only assuming, is digging in like ticks and sucking all the blood out of everything they can. Because the rules that they're writing, or the rules that they're changing and the rules that they're writing, some of them have absolutely no basis. They're just making them to make them. They're literally making them to make them. And I guess, I don't know how they're doing it, but what we have noticed is that, for instance, the inlet hazard area, If 99.9% of the people were opposed to something that the Board of Commissioners in this town are doing and walked in here and were opposed to it, the Board of Commissioners here would not do it. I didn't hear not a single person say that the expansion of the inlet hazard area on our west end was a good idea, and they don't care. And it's being pushed by their own staff.
Who appoints them?
The governor appoints them.
Maybe you said that.
The governor appoints the CRC.
They appoint the board that makes those decisions, that approves those things. Yes. I'm not sure, but I don't know who appoints the Braxton. I don't know who appoints him. I don't know if it's the board that does that or if
I
it's.
think that's a government
I
appointment.
think that's a government appointment.
job.
I think Braxton
I think it is.
I think he answers to that board just like the deputy director of NCDOI.
Mhm.
I think he's appointed by the governor. Yeah, I think he is. But either way, he doesn't seem to be any better. Braxton doesn't seem to be one bit better. And I'm not making it personal with them. It just seems like that's what they're doing. It just seems like they're totally out of control.
And I'm going to tell you that I listened to all their meetings, and it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they are really, really bad, out of control.
Well, here's the thing. If their primary focus is to protect the environment, if that's their primary purpose, I can give you 10 reasons why the things that they are applying to an inlet hazard area ain't protecting nothing. And I gave it to them the other day. I'll give you an example. The west end expanded all the way to the 1,000 block, right? If you're in the inlet hazard area, you can't have more than a 5,000 square foot structure in their inlet hazard area. The problem is that their inlet hazard area has expanded to that whole west end, but yet, if it weren't for the town's primary dune designation, the houses would be right out there on the ocean. But the town has a 6,000 square foot limitation now, and we keep them 600 feet from where they would allow them to be built. So tell me what CAMA's doing. 5,000 square feet is protecting the environment how? If it weren't for the town, they would be out there where every one of them would get destroyed every storm. They would be between the dune and that swash area out there. Go down there and take a look. Which means that it don't matter for 10 feet or 5,000 square feet, they weren't protecting nothing. And having an inlet hazard area designation weren't going to protect those structures out there. The only people that protect those structures is the town. It's the town's rule because it was written with intent. The intent was to protect the structures. They're just writing rules for rules because they're not doing anything with them. Nothing. I told them the other day I felt like me and Ronald were to send them every application that came in here so they could review it for the inlet hazard area. The reason being is our frontal dune is so far forward, so far behind theirs, until we don't even think about the inlet hazard area, do we, Ron?
No.
No. But now everybody from the 1,000 block on is stigmatized. You sell a piece of property, you're in the inlet hazard area. That's right. Now you think about it. I mean, I can make that. I can say that same statement is 100% true, and it'll fall on 30 deaf ears in one of those meetings.
Are there any civil engineers on that board?
Yeah, the board members are, but there's a lot of other members too. But there's one or two. We even have our own representative lives up there on Marshwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Bromley's on that board. He's on that board, and it's like a complete and 100%. Unlike here, it's like a complete and 100% loyalty to staff. Like staff walks in there and says, I think we should put a machine gun up on that big dune and shoot everybody that walks by. And they vote on it and it's passed.
Yeah.
Because that'll protect the environment. I mean, seriously, it makes no sense the way that they operate at CAMA. And I've written several letters. I know I've made Braxton mad, but I've wrote several letters. I wrote one to the governor, and I wrote one to Braxton, and I wrote one to the legislature. I wrote 3 of them. I've done it 3 times though. Keep copying it. I don't think CAMA I don't think CAMA needs to exist. If the legislative law that requires you to follow 7B would allow the town to enforce the rules, every single thing that they come down here and do, Rhonda does 2/3 of it. I can give you a prime example of that, and I'll stand here and rant as long as y'all let me. But I'll give you a prime example. Which do you think has a bigger impact on the environment on a canal? A 3,000 square foot house on a lot that's 50 by 60, because that's pretty much all the room you got, right? Right? And you build that there, you're making all that impervious area, all that storm water's running off of it. It's just a huge impact. Okay? If you want to get that permit, just come right up here to Rhonda and get it. Okay? Now, if you've got a canal that has no bulkhead, right, and no lot, and the water is running off of that lot and into that canal, right, that's an environmental problem, isn't it? This is getting into minding your stuff here. If you want to build a bulkhead there, if you put a bulkhead across there, there's no way on God's green earth that you can put a bulkhead there that would adversely affect the environment. The only thing it's going to do is what? Protect it. There's no way to do it. Even if you put a pipe in it so water could drain through it, it would still be better than allowing that water to flow over the banks and in there. So if you want to put something there, get permission to put something there that's going to protect the canal, right, and stop damage to the canal, you got to go to Wilmington to get it. But if you want to put that big old house there, you come over here to get it. Does that make any sense? Now, the building code tells you how you got to build it, where you got to build it, what size it's got to be built, what the criteria is, whether it's got to be engineered. So the design of it is already designed by a bunch of engineers that says this is how you build a bulkhead. They got nothing to do with that. So if you came and got a permit from me and put that bulkhead in, it would be the same bulkhead that you put in after you go over there and get permission. But you can't get that permit from her. You got to go over there to get it. Now am I making sense? So what are they enforcing? In other words, the state of North Carolina could write that rule. You mean? They already have. They already have. All they do is write permission to do stuff that impacts nothing.
Well, my
For
concern,
instance, the house that you write the permit for, Ron, before you write the permit for that, don't you have to verify that the stormwater is in?
Not verified, yeah.
Right? And the stormwater's going in the ground, so it's not going in the canal, right? What did they verify when they issued one for the bulkhead? Nothing. I mean, I could go on.
They verify where the wetlands are on the report of engineer.
Away, and you could put the 7B guidelines in the North Carolina Building Code, and you would achieve the exact same thing that they're doing now.
They're locating the wetlands and the 404 wetlands and deciding where the bulkhead can go.
my concern is that, okay, you guys all heard the big problem with the inlet hazard area, right? They came up with a new method called the IHAM method, the inlet hazard area method that they've determined. And what they've said is we're going to use this scientific method, and this is how we're going to determine where an inlet hazard area is, and that's where ours got moved all the way down to the fish streets. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, so it's all the way down to the fish streets. If you look at it and you go back through it, what's happened is they have looked at the standard deviation of the change, of how the shoreline changed. Our shoreline is accreting down there. It's getting bigger. So yeah, it's not change. It's changing. It's getting much wider. Well, they don't care that it's good change. They just are looking at change. So that's how it happened. They use 2. You've got an erosion rate of 2 no matter what, but even if you're accreting, you're still 2. So the problem that I'm concerned about is that in 5 years, they're going to come up with that they reevaluate everything every 5 years is what they want to do. Go back and look at it. So if we do all of our nourishment and sand continues to drift down towards the west, and that's where it's going to go because that's where our littoral transfer goes, is to the west. I'm concerned that our inland hazard area won't be stopping at 900. It's going to move on to 700 because those houses will start picking up sand. You see what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm going with this?
So how come they can't see the logic of why that doesn't make any
Okay.
sense?
I don't know.
All right, well, if you went back and listened to the minutes at the last CAMA meeting when I got up and spoke, what you people don't know is that everything above Wilmington, every inlet above Wilmington, didn't even get studied. They didn't even consider an expansion on 15 inlets above Wilmington. Instead, they monitor them and enforce them through what's called the ocean erodible area. Okay, the ocean erodible area allows they get to use all the things that she said that they're using against us. They get to use for those 15.
So can't we petition that we should be in that same category?
Ocean erodible area, we wouldn't qualify because we got so much vegetation down there. What I'm saying is that we wouldn't qualify for that. The problem is that they're allowed to use the actual science that they ignored on the 15 they're not expanding, and they've literally put it in writing. In other words, you get to take advantage of the lower erosion rates in the OEC, but you can't in the inlet hazard area. Doesn't matter how low it goes. If it keeps growing, you still got a -2. But if you're in one of those inlets up there, you get to use it if it's better. Beach renourishment, you can't use. If you're in one of those up there, you can. Wave action,
Yeah,
determine
but
wave
we're
action, the slope
using-
of the land, we can't use. If you're up there, they can.
But we're using, it's impacting us in a negative way. Because the change there is change. And they don't care if it's positive change or negative change.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a mathematical thing and it's straightforward and they refuse to budge.
Wow.
Right, well, they took notice the other day because a couple of them were shaking their head up and down. When you literally have on the board that says in the ocean erodible areas, in the inlet areas that were not increased, that you get to use the lower erosion rates, and you just had a form the week before that said that no matter what the erosion rates are in the inlet hazard area, you can't take advantage of the lower rates, then you can't deny that you've got a problem not with science because you're not using it. Their lead scientist resigned too, by the way.
It seems like that we should be able to take some legal action against that.
Well, they
At
asked
the
me if
time.
that's what we were gearing up for, and I've mentioned it to one or two people. I don't know, this is not the proper venue to talk about that.
We're
We
not
should
on
talk
the
about
recording, right?
Oh, it's on the recording.
that. Yeah.
We hadn't ended the meeting.
No,
We're still in our comments.
But yeah, I would,
Comments.
yeah, but that's the action to be taken by people who make bigger decisions than we do. Yeah.
But that's what's going to happen in
Yeah.
order to stop
That
this.
they're not going to listen to reason, then we have to take some action.
Like I said,
At least to get a stay, and then I think if you get a stay, it'll die. But
I think action would create a stay.
pardon me?
Right.
I think action would create a stay.
But anyway, this has bubbled on for quite some time now. I mean, all through the pandemic, it all went on. And
Well, it actually, they tried it before. When we
Mhm.
went up there, I went up there and spoke against it because last time it made even less sense. Last
So
time
have
they
they
used a bunch of
implemented
pictures. They used a bunch of
not.
pictures and took averages, and I said that was literally impossible. That if you took pictures over 1,000 years and then took the average, unless you made up science, it would have to be exactly where it's at. Not where, in other words, the inlet couldn't have moved. The average should we put it right where it's at.
mathematically,
Mathematically, it would always end up where it's at.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tim went up there, so then they had to kind of start from ground zero because Tim made so much sense. So they
Yeah.
started from ground zero and came up with this IHAM method that is unbelievably
Just as ridiculous.
ridiculous.
So you're still fighting them.
But
We
the
haven't
status
been
is
forced to-
that they, every time they're going to change a state statute, they have to do a fiscal analysis. So they just did the fiscal analysis again, and that's what they were presenting this past week.
Well, there's,
Correct?
yeah, and the physical analysis is supposed to say what kind of economic impact it has, but I promise you that you should have seen the logic behind it. Remember, they were pulling that out when we were at the county that day. It made no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't make any sense, and there's errors in it. There are flat-out errors in it, and they were brought out when this all came up, like at the county. And they're like, "Oh yeah, ooh, yeah, we'll fix that." Never fixed. Still
they
going
just-
with the same stuff.
They just basically justified it. And then we got down, then there's the last part that I did speak about, which was the 5-year non-existent review. It's basically a statement that's used to just make you be quiet. Every time you start hitting on a subject, every time you start pushing a button, or every time you ask a question they can't ask, they tell you about the 5-year review that has no parameters, has no distinct guidelines, has no outcome. It's just a 5-year review. And when I asked specifically from the staff what the outcome will be, their exact words were, well, it's just a review, it's not going to change nothing. Well, then why do you keep using it as a means by which to answer questions or to resolve issues? When I ask a hard question, you say, well, we're going to review it in 5 years, when it ain't going to make a difference. So I, on behalf of the town, demanded that there be a calendar date set the minute that the inlet hazard area was approved for the 5-year review. There'd be parameters of what that review was going to be, what the outcome against the parameters would be, whether it would get larger or get smaller, right? And what the makeup of those that were going to be doing the review. I had a list of demands. I said, the town demands, we want to know when this review is going to be done and what the outcomes are. Because we don't, and I told them, so just talk to your staff. There is no parameters. Y'all keep, I said, it's so frustrating. Every time we ask a hard question, y'all throw out the 5-year review, which we all know what it is.
But
It's
we
just a
don't
way to
even
shut
want
you
them
up.
to approve the original one because it impacts us so negatively, all the way down to the thousand.
Anyway, we can talk to her blue in the face. They're still going to approve it.
They are.
They're going to approve it.
Then we'll have to sue them.
I think we will.
You know, you can oppose some proposals and still be an environmentalist. You have your heart knowing what they're trying to do is not good for the environment, and you oppose it, you can still be an environmentalist.
Yeah.
And I want to brag a little before I leave this floor. In 1999, I came up with a project, and we won the EPA Environmental Project of the Year from EPA.
Wow.
And that was landfill gas. So all the gas being captured now, turned into electricity. Myself and a guy in Yolo County, California, Ramin Yazdani, came up with this. We worked together. And county manager and I went to Washington, D.C., actually Georgetown, to get the award. And we got the Environmental Project of the Year. And now, waste management, everybody's captured. What EPA wanted to do, I don't want to take all this time, they required you to capture the gas and put up and flare the gas.
Yeah.
Well, I said, you're just putting more pollutants in the atmosphere. So I came up with the idea, instead of putting it vertical, put it on the horizontal, put pipes there, capture the gas, and run the machines and generate electricity and put it on the grid. That's what Buncombe County landfill's doing right now. And they're getting $600,000 a year for it. And we had the old landfill, went back there, and there's 1,200 houses being
Built near.
Supplied with electricity off of the old landfill. So,
While everybody else is
so you can have a negative idea, they think, because you oppose their pipe, but it turns out the best thing. And
For everybody.
There's a
yeah,
lot
for
of
everybody.
There's a lot of birds, thank you. Those vertical pipes killed a lot of birds. They were putting in those landfills.
Yeah.
Yeah, they killed a lot of birds with vertical pipes. Burn them to
You ever seen one of those things burn?
Yeah, yeah.
Golly.
Yeah.
I grew up in Texas where they flare that natural gas all the time, you know, off of all the wells.
And they're not capturing the gas.
They didn't used to. I don't know. They might now.
I know Waste Management's doing all their landfills captured. But when we did that, the EPA made us approve that project for 5 years before they let everybody else do it. So, anyway, I've said enough. But I'm proud of that.
I'd be proud of
Yeah,
that too.
yeah, definitely.
So somebody saving birds.
Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.